How significant is this change?
Historically significant, Molly. Good morning to all three of you and everyone watching. In fact, to me, it's almost impossible to overstate what an historical decision this is and what an historical day yesterday was when NASCAR made this call. And I think the reason that it happened now is a convergence of variables. Push for social change and racial equality in this country that we've seen nationwide. I also think that it is a successful, respected, confident race car driver of color who is a winner in one of NASCAR's national series, one of only 2 black men ever to win in Bubba Wallace. And the respect and the vulnerability that he's shown to his peers throughout this revolutionary time, this time of change. His peers all joined him in the movement. And so it's a landmark time in NASCAR racing, and it's long overdue.
5 years ago, NASCAR did disallow in terms of the Confederate flag as a symbol for NASCAR. However, it was still allowed amongst fans. It was still at events. That will no longer be the case. And Max, you know, as Marty just alluded to with Bubba Wallace, we talk about Colin Kaepernick. He's one of the pioneers of change. I think Bubba needs to be a part of that discussion too, with how much weight has been on his shoulders, and he's truly shifting our country. Max, what's your take?
I totally agree with that. Can you imagine being an African-American NASCAR driver and starting to have those conversations before this moment? You know, why have we seen change here? Because, and this reminds me of, you know, shut up and dribble, right? Because enough people of color, enough African-American participants in this case, because we're dealing in the world of sports, are talking about it to their peers. So now their peers are starting to reflect those ideas and opinions, having their eyes opened to what's going on, and they reflect it to the fans. And when that coincides with a flashpoint like George Floyd's death, particularly given the turmoil in our civic life, in our American kind of civic life over the last 4 years, there's a confluence of events, and it allows for change like this, but if not for Bubba Wallace. Like, without that, there is no change. And I would say, I understand, you know, I also have the impulse, wait a minute, we're celebrating today that NASCAR's banning the Confederate flag, that a couple of years ago they said it won't be part of our symbolism. What? The Confederate flag? That's a flag that is for the army that fought against America. It was treason. They fought for slavery unambiguously and against America. And that's part of somehow some discussion where Southerners who intentionally did this, now maybe those around today don't know, but originally the keeping of the flag, the erecting of monuments to Confederate generals and soldiers and figures, that was a campaign of terror against Americans, African Americans, in the South. And so now, finally, we're supposed to celebrate this moment. But I would say to those with that impulse, and that includes me, when Jackie Robinson broke the so-called color barrier in Major League Baseball in 1947, it would have been legitimate to say, hold on, are we supposed to celebrate the fact that there's one black man playing Major League Baseball, and all these years they were prohibited from doing so? But and the time will come for that, and I understand that anger as much as I can, because I feel it. But I think when Jackie Robinson breaks the color barrier, you celebrate that first.
I agree.
And that's what I tell myself, at least, Domonique. This is a moment to celebrate change. And then later, I'll go back and get mad all over again.
I agree. I mean, I think that nothing's permanent. And I'm not 100% certain, and Marty can speak to this also in the future. I'm not 100% certain what's going to happen going forward with this particular flag in NASCAR events. I'm not a NASCAR fan. I don't go to NASCAR events. I can't speak to what happens there. But this morning on Get Up, Paul Feinbaum said when he used to cover it, he said he heard the N-word used regularly and freely in the infield amongst the fans. And that it shouldn't have surprised me, but it kind of blew my mind because, like, when you watch NASCAR events, like, who are they using it against? There's nobody there that you would expect them to use that word to insult. So it just is such a fabric, it feels like, to people that I've heard from. And Bubba Wallace mentioned that he's felt a lot of backlash, which is surprising because we keep talking about this like it's something that's long overdue and is an obvious step that they should have taken. But the idea that he's getting a lot of backlash, I know we had that one rider who is the only one who had a comment to suggest that he won't be participating next year because of this. So I think that maybe other people are scared to say it, but my assumption is there's going to be a lot of people offended. And there's one thing that popped into my mind when we were watching those that kind of B-roll, those clips coming in. It really popped into my mind that the Mississippi flag, the state of Mississippi, their flag has the Confederate flag embedded in it. And there's a number of state flags across the South that have Confederate ties and iconography that link to the Confederacy. So while we can all feel like we have some major win right here and some major step of progress for acceptance, like, what are you going to do? Are you going to ban the Mississippi state flag also? Because I feel like that's a major loophole that many of these people who want to disagree with this can fit into. Because the Mississippi flag in the corner where you would expect the stars to be in the American flag, they have the Confederate flag, and it was playing in our video as if that's one of those flags that will be banned. So I'll pass it back to you, Marty, on this. Yeah, I'll pass it back to you, Marty, on this because I want to know what's actually happening. Like, I know so many people aren't brave enough necessarily to say how they feel about this. Do you think that there is a backlash and an undercurrent of people who want to push back against this aggressively?
Not within the industry, Domonique, but among portions of the fan base, absolutely. There's going to be some really pissed off. There are some really pissed off people about this, and people who feel like NASCAR has turned its back on the roots of the people that built the sport. To them, I would say this. I would say that NASCAR is not closing the door on you. NASCAR is opening the door to everyone.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.